one left back.
A 4-3-3, you mean, right?
4-3-3. Yeah, sorry.
We're going to
4-4-3,
do
mate.
4-4-3. I'm all right with that. Yeah, give me 4-4-3, mate. Arsenal need a bloody 4-4-3 right now.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Social Media Derby. Before we get into this week's pod, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video and share if you can. Drop your comments down below. We love interacting with everyone on all the social channels as well as YouTube. So make sure you get your comments in below. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow. Give us a 5-star review if you can. All the feedback is really appreciated. Let's get into the pod. So how are you, Jonts? You all right?
Yeah, I'm not doing too badly, unlike my team.
Yeah, I was going to say. We went out yesterday to go and watch the snooker at Ali Pali. And we spotted a few Liverpool hats and scarves about. So they were quite proudly wearing their colours in North London, which was a bit cheeky. But let's get into the FA Cup fixtures then, because we both had games. United played yesterday evening against Wigan away. Arsenal played at home against Liverpool on Saturday. Or was it Sunday or Saturday? I can't even remember. I think it was Sunday, actually, wasn't it? Let's get into it then. Should we start off with the Arsenal game? Because I guess that was a bit more of a big time fixture. United against Wigan, regardless of how crap we've been. Everyone expected us to win that, so it wasn't too much of a shock. But let's get into the Arsenal 0, Liverpool 2 home third round defeat for Arsenal in the FA Cup. I think you guys have won it the most times, haven't you? 14 times or something like that. So it's a trophy that you guys value. Both teams went fairly strong as well. There were a lot of chat going around on Twitter and all the tacticos and ITKs saying they thought Liverpool in particular were going to go really weak and put a lot of youngsters in there. But actually, it was pretty much almost your strongest first teams. What did you make of the game then, Johns? 2-0 defeat. Were you shocked? What did you make of the performance, and why do you think you lost ultimately?
So I think the performance, if we ignore the result part of it, in the first half particularly, we were really good. We created quite a lot of chances. Frustratingly, they fell to people that couldn't finish any of them. Second half was not as good, obviously. Liverpool got back into the game. I think Klopp made some really good substitutions and kind of changed up the game well. You could immediately see, for example, when Jota came on, when some of the youngsters even came on, that they were performing quite well, and the change to the system that they made kind of coincided with maybe some weird changes on our part that didn't really make any difference to the game. And I think 2-0 is a little bit flattering to them, because obviously the second goal was kind of us bombing forward, trying to get a goal back, and they kind of just took advantage of us overloading kind of the final third of their box. And so obviously when you look at the result, it doesn't look great. But to me, I think if we were to say who deserved the result, I felt like XG wise, in terms of chances created, had we got something in the first half, I feel like that game would have gone completely differently. But just, from that perspective, it doesn't matter how many chances you create if you can't put any of them away. So I think, overall, it's a disappointing performance. I can't say it surprises me massively. I thought we were probably going to lose the game. I didn't believe that they were going to put out a really weak team. I didn't think we were going to put out a really weak team either, just because there's a lot more at stake than just, going out of the cup, right? There's also a kind of a momentum change and shift that comes from any big game that you play against a massive rival, right? We saw it in like the Community Shield. That was something I was taking, as a massive positive when we beat City, even though everyone knows the Community Shield doesn't really mean anything, but it is good to always get one over your rivals. So I think, I didn't expect us to win, especially given the fact that, recently we've obviously had a shocking, run of form, and I didn't see that necessarily changing against a team like Liverpool, who will punish you, right? And that's as simple as it was. We got punished for not putting away our chances. Liverpool always hang in the game, and they've got the right quality up front to punish you for, for mistakes and not putting away your big chances. So overall, a disheartening performance from us. Can't say I'm massively surprised. And we've just got to move on and see if we can get something from our next run of games. We've really kind of got to get out of this dip in form that we've seen recently.
Yeah, it's a hard one to analyze. I think that game because I think the best I've heard in terms of analysis from any of the Arsenal fan content creators was that I think it was a pretty good performance. I think you guys played well up until the final action, whether it be missing out on making an obvious pass or not being clinical enough when you got the opportunities your way. So I don't know if you could say it was a disappointing performance, but I think it was a disappointing result, and the result was based purely on whether or not you can take chances. And there's a bunch of stats going out there about how many shots you've had in the last three fixtures, if you include the two prior against West Ham and Fulham. So yeah, there's clearly a bit of an issue, I think, with you guys when it comes to finishing and taking your chances. And there's obviously news that Gabby Jesus has got another knee injury and might be out for another chunk of time. So what do you think about this little period, Johns? Because I know it hasn't been stellar football. You've talked about it a lot on the pod, about how you would like Arsenal to develop a different style of play, or at least implement the style that you used last season a bit more consistently than you have this season to improve the performance and play kind of a more attractive style of football. But it's now 3 losses in a row, 1 win in 7. Are you one of those people that believes you're in a bit of a crisis, or do you think people are just going a bit overboard with their reactions to the last 7 games?
I think it's the same thing that happens every time, right? It's an overreaction.
Mm.
Obviously, the 3 results aren't great, but I mean, I think it's a bit far to go and say it's a crisis for us, because a crisis means that something major has to change, and that you are, at risk of a disaster occurring. Now, in my mind, getting top 4, whatever else, is not a disaster. It's an underperformance and it's a disappointment. Going out of these cups and stuff, they're an underperformance and they're a disappointment. But I mean, it's not as if we went out to, I don't know, like Newport County or something, right? We went out to arguably the best team in the league. Them and City are that they have proven it over the last 5-10 years that they're the best team in the league in terms of consistent performances. So from that point of view, I'm not all that worried, right? Nothing has changed in that regard. Do I think it puts an end to our title charge? Yes. I think that this run of games has put an end to that. Do I think it's put an end to getting any kind of silverware this year? Yes, I think that, right? I mean, we're still in the Champions League, but the chances of winning the Champions League are slim. So from that point of view, I think the 2 major aims that we would have had this season, so first of all to win the Premier League, and second of all to get some sort of trophy or silverware from this season, both of those major goals will not be achieved this year. Now, it depends on how people look at it to say whether it's a crisis or not. I think if it were Man City or if it were Liverpool or something else like that, where you would expect that because of the consistency of their performances over the last few years, then fair enough, you could try and call it a crisis. But I want to remind everyone that we were good last season, but before that we were absolute trash, right? It's not as if we've been leading the league and we are clear favourites to do any of these things, right? As much as Gary Neville might say we were the favourites to win the league, the bookies never had us the favourites, right? And I don't think they've got us favourites to win any of the cups either. So from that perspective, statistically, it's an underperformance, but I think people are maybe short-sighted in that, they've got very short memories of, oh, Arsenal are great now, so, we expect them to do everything. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, right? If we're going to take this project-based approach, I kind of said it on the last podcast, right? You've got to look a bit longer term. Now, in the short term, obviously the results aren't great and something's got to change in terms of team selection, style of play. Arteta's got to do something different. He's got to maybe bring people in the January window. But from the long point of view, I still see us on an upward trajectory, right? Year over year compared to last year, maybe we won't do as well as we did last year, but we've also got to take into account that other teams around us are pumping money into their teams. Other teams around us are making changes. Other teams around us are trying to improve as well. So it's on us to improve more than everyone else does and close that gap down. I think we are doing that still. Do I think, we're going to be able to do that this season? No. But all in all, I don't think it's a crisis. Obviously, we need to improve our performances. And if this, bad run of games continues for a lot longer, then yes, I will start calling it a crisis. But it's been, a few games now. Let's hold off. There's still a lot of games left in the season. We can still, finish well in the league. But it's far too, recency bias to start saying, oh, it's a crisis now. People throw that word around far too quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you though. It depends. It depends on the context. If you're looking at Arsenal now as an established title challenging team, then to drop down to fourth, 1 point above fifth, get knocked out of a couple of cups, it could be looked at as a crisis, I guess. But I wouldn't treat Arsenal, and I don't categorise Arsenal as one of those teams. Like, I agree with you completely. Hurts me to say, but my two biggest rivals are the two teams that are the most... They would be forgiven for calling this sort of run of 3 losses and 1 in 7 a mini crisis because of the high standards they've set. You've done it for 1 year, so I think really this season is more about finding out about what Arsenal really are. Are they going to become one of those teams like Liverpool and Man City? Or are they going to revert to the mean? Because last season, you can say you're underperforming this season, but if you perform and at the level you currently are, get fourth or third or fifth, you have to just do simple maths and look at Arteta's tenure and say last season was more of an overperformance than this season being an underperformance. It just happens to be in the chronological order. It looks like you've gone down, but if you look at it with a wider scope, it's performing at the most consistent level that you have under Arteta. So let's wait and see. I think obviously Arsenal fans, like Man United, the reason why we called this the social media derby, have a huge presence on social media. So their voices are the loudest. When you guys lose at home twice on the bounce 2-0 without scoring a goal, your fans are going to lose your shit. I think that's to be expected. But no, I agree with you, mate. Let's get into the last kind of big question then. Obviously, this isn't good form. How does Arteta try and turn this around? At least, let's not say it's a crisis, but that form's not fantastic. How does he change this around? Do you think he needs to? I know you've said talking about creating a different style, but I think that's more of a mid to long term goal, right? What in the immediate can Arteta do to try and get you guys performing better? Should he change something tactically with a tweak, or do you think just go to the January transfer window and buy a striker, which I think a lot of other Arsenal fans are saying will help the problem? What do you think the solution is?
I mean, if we put ourselves in his shoes and we look at what are the possible solutions available, number one is you just keep playing how you're playing right now, right? And you just hope that something clicks and something changes, which we've seen work for other teams, right? Like you don't abandon your style, you don't abandon your plans after 3 results or 4 results or whatever it is, right? You stick to it, and as your team gets more familiar with the way that you're trying to play and gets a bit more familiar with what is expected of them, and they make some improvements in their in their performances, essentially you naturally get better, right? That's option number one. So essentially is do nothing, just keep going the way that you're going now. The second thing is you can start changing around with what you've got, right? So you can play Reece Nelson more, you can try out different people within the system. I don't think he's going to abandon the tactics necessarily or the formation. I think he's going to stick to it and just change people around. So that's another thing that you could do, right? Bring in Reece Nelson for Martinelli. Hope that Gabby Jesus comes back and start playing him in other places. Give Nketiah a longer run of games and see what happens, right? There's various things that you could do there. Do I think he's going to do that? I'm not really certain, but that's obviously one of the options too. And then obviously lastly is, again, keep the same style, but try and improve the players that you've got to utilize in those positions, right? And I think, as you kind of mentioned, we've got probably the biggest problem right now is coming from our strike region, right? Like it's coming from our inability to finish chances. And I can't say it's all from the strikers, right? It's also from other parts of our team. You saw Saka miss a couple of sitters against Liverpool too. So it's not just the striker position that needs to improve their finishing. It's pretty much all of the attacking part of our team. But obviously, you'd expect most of that to come from the striker. So he could go in January and try and buy a striker, whether that would be Tony, Solanke, or somebody else that he's looking at from outside of the UK, possibly in Italy or Spain, wherever else he's looking at the moment. So I mean, of those kind of three options, which one do I think he's actually going to do? I mean, previously when we've gone and done things in January, I don't know if we've necessarily looked at doing or actually completed like very big high value transfers. I know obviously we had like the whole Mudryk situation and then ended up getting Trossard, right? I think that was in January of last year, right? So we could go after a big high value target like we were going to with Mudryk. Luckily we dodged that bullet, but we could go and do that. I don't think we will though. I mean, and the reason why I say that is just because we spent so much money in the summer. I don't think it's prudent of us as a team, financially to go and do that. And I don't think Arteta's in the business of overreacting in the short term, right? He looks for deals where he can get them. If he missed out in the summer, he might still go and try and get the position that he missed out on. But I think for the most part, he was pretty happy with how the summer went. And he was quite, let's say, content with the signings that he made. So I don't think he's got some kind of big revenge buy that he wants to make that he couldn't get in the summer. So I don't think he's going to go out and buy a Tony unless it's a really good deal. I don't think he's going to go out and buy a Solanke unless it's under 60 mil. I don't think we're going to go and spend crazy this summer. So if we rule out that option, what do we have left? I think he's probably going to continue to do what he's doing now, right? He's going to utilize the team that he thinks works the best, where Havertz is in the 8 and Nketiah is up front, and he might do a little bit of tweaking here and there depending on the injuries. But unfortunately, it's a boring answer, but that's what I think he will do. If it were up to me, I would probably do the same thing, because I mean, as much as I would love to get a striker, I don't want to pay 100 million for Tony. All right, and I think we've seen over the last few years what overreacting in the transfer market can do to you in the long term. Right, FFP is a cruel mistress. Right, she will come and backhand you as soon as you start getting out of line, and I think we've seen that can really screw you up for the future. So we already had a couple of busts in this past summer market. I mean, Havertz is, in my mind, he's a bust until he does better than he's currently doing. Right, so outside of that, I don't think we can afford to go and take risks in the transfer market and have more busts on our balance sheet. Just doesn't make sense from a financial perspective and from a long-term kind of club building perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right with what Arteta will do. I think he will keep with the same team and just hope that people start playing themselves into form. To be fair, I thought Reece Nelson looked lively. He obviously missed that first chance in the first few minutes, but I think that's quite understandable. He doesn't get that much game time, and then he got a chance in the first few minutes of a big game, and he didn't make all the right decisions, and maybe didn't execute the way he wanted to. But that should be expected. But other than that, I thought he was really lively. I thought Martinelli was really good when he came on the pitch. I think he gave Trent problems immediately, and that's something that maybe we've missed when we've watched Arsenal play recently. I think the big conundrum is what you've pointed out. It's clearly the striking position, but I would also put a little bit of a worry at Saka's door. Not on him as a player, but just he looks knackered. He looks absolutely knackered or like really lost for confidence. It's nothing about him as a player, so you don't need to stress out. I'm not about to go big and say Saka or something like that. He's obviously a very good player, and his output is still there. But he just didn't look. I don't know what I want to
We
get
need
your
more
opinion on.
rotation.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
need
He
more
just
rotation in the position, right? You can't
yeah.
expect a player to just continuously, especially at that age, to continuously play every game. And I'm not going to go on a Martin Keown rant, right, and say that it's the biggest injustice that he's not getting more, protection from
Protection.
the
Yeah.
referees. But he does get challenged quite a lot, right? He's, I think, the third most fouled player. Um, and he's a young guy, right? And I think from that perspective, I think he we need more rotation in that position, right, to protect him, but also for the good of the team, right? And I think Reece Nelson has shown on multiple occasions he can step up. Maybe the right wing position is not his favorite, but I think giving him a run out in that position maybe will change something up again. We've got obviously Trossard, who, while I complain about him being wasteful, when you put him in one of the top three attacking positions in our team, I'm okay with him being a bit wasteful, right? It's when you start trying to put him a bit deeper in the pitch and he's losing the ball on the halfway line and creating counterattacks for the other team is when I have a problem with that. But if you stick him at right wing, I'm also fine to see that happen too. So I think we've got options. We've got Emil Smith Rowe, who's a left footer. He could easily play on the right wing as well and do the cut end thing and maybe play a bit more central than Saka usually would. But we've got plenty of options, and I think Arteta needs to utilize some of the options that we've got coming off the bench to give Saka a bit of a break. I do remember from some interviews that Arteta had put out, and obviously Saka himself saying, "I want to play every single game," and he's almost demanding that he wants to play every single game. But I think from a responsibility perspective, Arteta needs to protect him a little bit more than he's doing now. As you say, this little drop off in form in terms of just not output, but in terms of his actual just like performances on the pitch and the eye test. This is where you look and you say, oh, you know what? If this was Football Manager, I would start giving him a bit of a rest, right? Let that orange bar get up to green again. And if we don't, and he continues to perform badly, then bigger problems start to get asked, right? And we know what happens, right? There's almost no break in football these days anymore. So you can't expect him to come back next year and everything, to be markedly different. It's not going to change. Football is so non-stop these days that they barely get any rest as it is. So, he's an England international as well. He seems to be playing every game for them. So from that point of view, I think Arteta's got to take the responsible stance and say, Saka, I'm resting you for a couple of games, mate, and I'm going to play some of these other players that need a run out. Even if we don't long-term plan to keep them, it doesn't hurt to get them a run out and let them improve some of their value on the transfer market by, putting in some decent performances. So I think we need to protect him. We need to rotate our squad and use some of the depth that we've got, right wing and the attacking positions. We've got a decent amount of depth, right? Maybe I'm not so happy with the starting 11, but we've got decent options in that, in that front three.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think you've got options. I just think Arteta's been doing a bit of a Pep crazy professor, Professor Genius type thing by dropping people, dropping Trossard into midfield, playing Havertz in a bunch of roles that I think no one really saw coming or no one believed he could be effective in. And I think, yeah, I agree with you about Saka. I don't think there's any question around him as a player, his quality. He's got it, it's undeniable. He's proven it over the last couple of seasons and pretty much put Arsenal on his back to varying levels, pretty much since he's started his professional career. But what's really obvious is he could go down um, a route where you see his performance drop off and his numbers start to drop off later if they don't start managing his minutes. And you won't like the comparison, but maybe their characters are different, but it can go down a Rashford route if you keep playing him non-stop, either with injuries or his performance. And then depending on what his character is, I don't know if he's got the same character as Rashford. I don't really know much about him. But if you start making that young player who needs protection and who needs to be taken care of, like your star boy, and I don't mean it with the kind of slang term that we all kind of joke around and say star boy, but if you make him your pin-up boy of your club and put all of your pressure and weight behind him, it might be too much. You need to spread it out. You've bought players who are older, players who've been around the block, they need to step up and start helping Saka out and not make everything fall on his shoulders because he's still a young guy. He needs to be supported as well. We can't expect everyone to be Jude Bellingham's and have this unbelievable character and all this leadership quality from such a young age. Like a lot of young players are going to need that from other places, whether it's the manager or other more senior players on the field. So, yeah, let's see, man. I hope for Saka's sake and for Arsenal's sake that you guys manage to turn it around a bit and stop Liverpool or City winning this league because those are both my worst nightmare. I can put up with AFTV and Robbie and you and all the Arsenal fan creators giving me grief if you win the league. I don't know if I can put up with the Liverpool and City guys, even if there's only a few of them.
I think you'll have to though, mate. I don't see it going any other way this season, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah, I'm still hoping and praying that you guys pull out your because that's what we need. But let's go on to United's FA Cup third round result. 2-0 away at Wigan. It was an interesting match because it just wasn't the best game of football. And there was a bit of jeopardy in there because we didn't really pull our finger out and we were super wasteful as we kind of have been all season. But yeah, the Portuguese duo got the 2 goals. Diego Dalot in the first half, Bruno Fernandes with a somewhat questionable penalty in the second half. Johns, what did you make of the game, first of all? I'll give my analysis afterwards, but did you watch it and what did you make of the performance?
Yeah, I watched it. I thought it was actually quite a decent game to watch, right? Like Wigan actually played pretty nice football. I think it was, I think his name's Godot.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple of their
the right
wingers were really, really good. And so I saw some really good play from them. I think they had one really good chance where Onana did pretty well. To make a save. I think from that perspective, it was quite competitive, right? And that's no diss to Man United. I think Wigan actually played really well, and they kind of came out for the occasion. So it was kind of nice to see that after the nostalgia of the old Wigan in the Premier League. So I'm hoping the best for them. I hope they can get back up to the Championship and all of that. But I think from Man United's perspective, you did what you needed to do, right? You had chances, and you made the best of them. And I think it was kind of like not a non-game, but I feel like you did what you needed to do. You got out of there and you've put yourself in a good stead for the next game. Obviously, you've got quite a favourable next fixture, and I think you can do something off of this performance, right? As much as some people say, oh, it's only Wigan, oh, it's only the cup or whatever else. I mean, you got to take a win is a win, and goals are goals, and a clean sheet's a clean sheet, right? So from that point of view, it's any springboard you can get, you should take at this point, right? And I think we're not in the cup anymore, are we? So we can't exactly make fun of you guys. So it was good. I think it was a good performance. Delot, great finish from him. Bruno, very, very questionable penalty, but I think, as I said to you yesterday, in today's game, that's a penalty, right? If you touch someone in the box, especially one of their feet, it's a penalty. Right. And it was nice the fact that we didn't have VAR and all that. I know that, some of the commentators are overdoing it a bit like, oh, how nice is it not to have VAR? But it was pretty nice to just be like, you know what, there's nothing that can be done about that decision. Right. We can complain all we want. We can say I'm in an R in about whether it's a penalty or not a penalty. Is it enough contact to go down? But it doesn't matter. The decision's been made. Right. And it's a penalty. And, sometimes the ability to question the decision and the ability to affect the decision kind of gives us a bit more grief than we need. If we just have somebody come out and say that's a penalty, whether you like it or not, it's a penalty, jog on, then we all just kind of take it and we move on. So from that perspective, I don't think we can complain all that much. And Bruno did his usual Bruno, which is a nice penalty. He sold the keeper the wrong way, put it into the corner. Exactly what you probably want from that kind of situation. So all in all, I think it's a positive performance for United. You guys should be somewhat happy about the performance, and I would hope that you can use it, if I was a United fan, as a springboard to score more goals. Because at the end of the day, that's got to be your issue, right? Just can I see my team actually score? And that's the thing that's so frustrating about Arsenal. I don't give a crap about us being good defensively and all this other stuff. This game is a game of scoring goals, and when you don't see your team score goals for ages, it's flipping demoralizing. Even if you lose a game, right? Mid-game, you get to celebrate, and you get to see some good play from your team, and they put it in the back of the net. But So from that point, you scored 2 goals, you came out with a clean sheet. It's got to be a positive, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess your analysis is also within the context of your watching your team have 60 plus shots and not score a goal in the last couple of weeks. So the bar's on the absolute floor. And I mean, when it comes to me and my team, it's not like my bar's super highly raised either. Like we've lost, 14 games in the season already. So any victories are really well welcomed. But I thought the performance was okay. I thought we haven't really had loads of problems creating chances, but we've been so profligate. Like we keep missing so many chances. And Hoyland yesterday, I really thought after the Aston Villa game and him doing his massive passionate celebration after scoring a winner was going to be a bit of a springboard for him. I wasn't expecting him to start becoming Haaland or something, but I thought that when he got presented with more chances in the next few games, he could use that bit of confidence to try and convert some of those chances. And he headed it onto the bar from like 5 yards out, which was a really good piece of play when it comes to like his movement was great. He peeled off the last defender and got across him to win the header in the first place. But he's got to score that. And then there was a couple of other like kind of rickety,
Yeah, he shouldn't
just
have won it
scrappy,
outside the post.
scrappy chances that fell to him, which you'd expect him to take. But yeah, man, the biggest thing is just what it just looked like our players were kind of just taking it for granted a bit. Not Dallo, not Bruno. There were some players on the pitch that looked like they were giving a shit and were giving their best. I think Dalot, Bruno, Garnacho, Mainu, they were all trying. And I think they were our best players, to be honest. I think Onana as well, he made a decent save in that first minute from that chance, and it could have easily slipped under him and gone in, especially with his recent form. Or just general form. You never really know what you're going to get from him, right? So any kind of save you take as a bonus. 2-0 into the next round, it's going to make me overlook some of the bad performances. Like I said, Hoyland was really wasteful. McTominay just doesn't do anything. So, we're going to get more comments on Instagram or TikTok saying that, we've got to give him some praise because he scores goals for us, but he hasn't scored since Chelsea. And honestly, I swear to God, I'm not trying to pile on, but it took me 20 minutes to first notice that he was playing yesterday. Like I just didn't see him, and he's a big guy. Like it's not like he's some tiny, small kind of cowering figure on the pitch. He's like a 6'3", massive, wide, brolic Scottish guy. How am I just not noticing him for the first 20, 25 minutes? And everything he did yesterday was just, yes. As soon as I saw it, I was just like, it's McTominay. It's kind of, I'm battered down now and just resigned to the fact he's not really going to have a huge impact, at least from a consistency standpoint. Like he's going to turn up and do his usual couple of late goals or, score a goal out of nothing here or there. But he's not someone we can rely on. And I think that's what I'm really, really craving from this Man United team. I just want us to have at least a core 3 or 4 players that we know are going to be 7, 8 out of 10 every week. I'm not asking for them to get 20 goals and 20 assists or anything like that, but just to perform well and affect the team in a positive way. And I think Bruno used to be that player for us, even as much as he would be kind of hoofball FC. You knew that something would happen, and when it did, it would be him affecting the game in a positive way. Defensively, last season we kind of got used to. We took for granted the Lisandro Martinez and Varane partnership, which I think was really sturdy. And then Rashford was someone that we got used to scoring a lot of our goals last season. And to be honest, this season we haven't had that core at all. First of all, with the defense, we haven't had most of them playing, but then Bruno and Rashford haven't hit the heights of their previous seasons. I think obviously Rashford's a little bit of a marked drop off, but it just was one of those games where we kind of coasted. And even though Wigan did play, I agree with you, Wigan played decent football from like a visually appealing standpoint. They bopped it around quite nicely. They I think United could afford to be wasteful in that game because we were always going to create enough that eventually we would take our chances and win that game 99 times out of 100. So it's not going to be with one of those ones where I go semi mini viral on TikTok or something because I'm whinging about something, but it's just a game for us to, like you said, move on, job done. Didn't play the best, didn't play the worst, and let's see how we go going forward in our next game. But yeah, you alluded to it. We've got a favourable draw in the next round, either
Yeah.
Newport County or Eastleigh away. Hopefully, that gives us a chance of going deeper in the cup. And yeah, man. Ten Hag said something really stupid where he was like, "Yeah, we've still got the chance of winning the Premier League and FA Cup." Don't know what he's smoking, including the Premier League in that, because we've got absolutely no chance of winning the Premier League. It'll be really hard for us to get top four with the first half of the season that we've kind of given. But I think we've got a shot in the FA Cup. I think it helps when you've got Spurs and Man City playing each other, Chelsea and Villa playing each other. If we can
Arsenal
start
out already.
Arsenal
Well,
out
you've got
already.
to worry about whoever wins that Spurs City game, and then Liverpool really.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that might be counting our chickens because I think we could easily lose to Villa or Chelsea as well.
Of course.
But those are the big worries, aren't they? So if we can keep seeing ties where we go away to Newport County or Eastleigh and the big teams play off against each other, that would be fantastic. And as long as we don't have Liverpool or Man City in the final, I think we've got a decent chance of winning. If we do, yeah, let's write it off right now. We're not going to win that, but yeah, let's see how it goes. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can at least have a bit of a cup run and give our fans something to at least get behind. Because God knows the league is. I think the league's going to continue being inconsistent. Right. Well, I think we're set up, and we have been for the last 4 or 5 years to be a good, decent cup team. As long as we get decent draws and pull out big performances in one-off games, I think we can manage to pull that off. But consistent league performance, I don't think we're anywhere near that.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's
Well,
see how it goes.
On that subject, I mean, technically the January transfer window is open, and we've obviously seen with Ineos coming in now, and all of the kind of news around it. I've been seeing more and more rumours swirling around specifically United. Some of them I look at them and think, F off, there's no chance you're getting him. And I'm going to talk about one of those now, because obviously one of the big rumours that I've seen swirling around some of the Man United fan channels and so on is around Michael Elise. And obviously there's been some conversation around a possible swap deal, Wan-Bissaka maybe returning back to Old Crystal Palace, and you guys getting Elise. Obviously, I'm sure you'd have to sweeten the deal a lot more, and it would not be a straight swap. But I mean, speaking from the wider perspective of the January transfer window, you kind of mentioned it there. You're not expecting to see massively consistent performances from Man United in the league for the rest of the season. But what do you make of your chances in the transfer window? Do you see some smart signings happening and maybe changing that? And could Elise be one of those?
So short answer, no. I don't think we'll make any big signings. Certainly not of the caliber or level of Elise. I think that one's kind of been more mooted as a summer transfer window deal, which I think could get done. I think this January window, to be really frank, we might see a couple of loans. You might see us pull the trigger on a cheap release clause like Garassi from Stuttgart, who's been scoring quite a few goals in the Bundesliga. But yeah, I don't see any kind of major big transfers being done, not in this window. Partly because of the reason that you gave right at the beginning, which is Ineos have just come through the door. That deal's still being ratified. I expect they're going to do some sort of audit over the next 6 months of both the playing staff and the non-playing staff, and use this 6 months leading up to the summer transfer window as a bit of a cleaning house operation. So obviously, there's been loads of rumours around Dan Ashworth and Paul Mitchell, and I think Jean-Claude Blanc, who's kind of pretty much almost nailed on to come in as part of the Ineos senior leadership team, to come in and do that kind of cleaning process. To be honest, that's music to my ears, because as soon as we get rid of John Murtagh, Darren Fletcher and the boys club that we've had at the club over the last 10, 15 years, the better. I've even seen images of of what's his name again? The CEO that we used to have, David Gill. That's it. I saw pictures of him sitting with Sir David Brailsford as well. So yeah, all of that kind of stuff is not just nostalgia. I just think those are when our club was run the best. We had David Gill and Sir Alex Ferguson here in the building. So if we can use their knowledge to try and help give us guidance about how we should go about solving some of those problems going forward, I think that can only be a positive thing. It's certainly better than having a bunch of clueless bank in the building, which has kind of been our senior leadership team before that. So let's see how that goes. On the playing side, like I said, loans, cheap deals, nothing long term. I think can be expected from the January transfer window, but I wouldn't be shocked to see that deal happen in the summer. I think we've triggered Wan-Bissaka's 1 year extension, so his contract doesn't end at the end of his season, but the following season. But I think that's merely to protect his value in the market. So I think that deal could still happen. The only questionable part of it is, do I think Wan-Bissaka would go back to Palace? Sure. Do I think we could pay the fee to make the deal happen? Sure. Does Michael Elise want to come to Man United? That's the point. I don't know. If we have any form of like legitimate competition, I can see us losing out on the deal. I can also see him staying at Palace for one more season rather than coming to the club. I can't see any kind of way that we can convey any form of confidence to any kind of young up and coming talent to come to Man United at the moment, other than paying them out the arse. And I don't think Ineos will be supporting that kind of approach. I think that's what we've done in previous years. That's what's got Jadon Sancho on a 325k a week salary and making it really difficult for us to offload him. So I don't see us being able to get deals over the line using our financial might. I think we're going to have to rely more on the sporting project. And to be honest, I think that's going to require people to take a bit of a leap of faith. And I don't know whether Elise is going to be one of those guys. But from a right back perspective as well, I think we've obviously just given Dalot a big deal last season. I think there's been lots of rumours around Ten Hag wanting to look at trying to get Jeremy Frimpong, who he obviously knows, playing in the Dutch league and through the Dutch youth teams. So I think the deal makes sense. It's just whether or not Elise will agree to come to us, and if he has the option of Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Real Madrid, or anyone like that, credible Bayern Munich, then obviously I would expect him to pick those clubs over us. But let's see, man. I'm just looking forward to the change. Let's just get the non-playing stuff sorted out first. Let's give those guys time to analyze our playing squad, and then boom, let's get a consistent plan based on a playing style and a vision organized, and I'll be a happy guy. But let's see how it goes.
I want to add one thing to that. I think it certainly, to me, when I saw the Elise rumor, I was thinking there's no chance he's going to you. And obviously, the more I think about it, the more I think to myself, it depends on the options that are available, right? And unfortunately, if Man United is the best of the options available, he's going to make that choice. And I think, he had his opportunity to go to City, and we've seen what typically happens with him, which is someone comes in for him and then he suddenly randomly signs a new contract on a long-term deal. And I think, if he does get to the point where he's getting sick of, Crystal Palace, where he wants to make the move up, you've kind of got to look at the teams available that would want him, right? And you think of yourself, Man City, they've gone and bought Doku now. They've made a couple of big signings, I guess, in kind of key areas of that team. They've got people like Bernardo Silva having somewhat of kind of like a second wind. They've got players like Foden really trying to step up to the plate now. So from that point of view, I think maybe City are probably not going to be in the market for another very expensive young, even though I know he's not English. I mean, like a well-known kind of player to the English team, and someone that, a lot of fans, I think, would look at and think, even though he is French, he's kind of like an English French, right? So I think from that point of view, I don't think they're going to want to go and spend a bunch of money on Elise, because I do think he's going to command a big fee. You look at Liverpool and you think, look at the strength of that attack. Why are they going to want to go for another player like that? You look at Arsenal, you think, again, we've got, even though I don't think it's the strongest of attacks, we've got quite a lot of attackers at this point. So from that point of view, I think maybe if you look at the level of quality that might come after him, yeah, there are teams like Bayern Munich, but we know they're typically not willing to pay humongous sums for players. I know they've just recently bought Kane, but I mean, I think that's a bit of a one-off. If you can get Kane for 100 million, you get him, whoever
That's
you
a
are.
snip anyway.
Exactly. So from that point of view, I think it's, the Tottenhams of the world, the Man Uniteds of the world, the Aston Villas, those kinds of teams are probably going to be the ones that are most interested in him in the next, let's say, 12, 18, 24 months. So from that point of view, if you're fighting against them, I still think you'd probably lose out based off of the project. But if Ineos can come and make, a market improvement to the reputation of the team, and they can show that, things are serious now, there is a chance that you could go and get him. I just think, as you kind of said, I don't see Crystal Palace selling in the January transfer window for one, and then second of all, I don't think Ineos are going to be in the position to want to make major kind of critical decisions at this point in time. So making a massive signing like that, I don't think is going to be happening in the January transfer window. But summer could happen.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one to keep the eyes on for the summer. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be linked with thousands of other players, so at least it won't be the only name we discuss.
Yeah, it will come out in the news. This new player, this great player was a childhood Man United fan, as always comes out with these players, eh?
Of course, it's always the way. Let's get on to the preview section then. We've got one fixture. One of us is playing a game this weekend. I think you guys are starting your kind of January break this weekend, your winter break. So you haven't got a fixture. But Man United are playing Tottenham. I believe it's on Saturday. Big game. It gives us a bit of an opportunity again to kind of take points off teams that are directly in and around us, and also fighting for top four. And we kind of owe them one, because as much as they deserve to win, I think, based on at least the last 40 minutes of the reverse fixture, in that first half, we had so many chances, like gilt-edged chances to be 1-2-0 up. And I think the game will be different then. So I think we really owe them one off the back of that game. And I think styles make fights. And I think Tottenham against Man United, even more so now after Ange's been, given a bit more time to develop his style with them, I think could work. It could be similar to, the Chelsea game, the Aston Villa game that we've had, where they play a high line, they go for it themselves, and that leaves them open for us to actually hit them on the counter, or at least on transition. So I have a better feeling about this game than some might think, and I'm going to go for a 3-2 Man United win. I think there's going to be tons of goals because Tottenham are really going to go for it. And I think we're also going to get lots of opportunities with Ange's high line for life, mate. So, yeah, I'm going to go for 3-2 Man United. What do you think, Johns?
I think, obviously, they're in a good run of form again. Obviously, they did lose to Brighton, I think, was it 4-2? Yeah. But that was an away match. And, Brighton, we know, depending on the Brighton that turns up, can be a really, really hard fixture. I'll be honest with you. I think you kind of were spot on with the inconsistency. I think you've gone and beaten Wigan. I think you're going to go and lose to Tottenham now. So, in my mind, what I do is I just look at Man United and I think, oh, what was their last result? Oh, they won. All right, they're going to lose this time. Yeah, we do. You just go opposite of what would logically happen is the best way to predict a Man United result, to be perfectly honest with you. So, I think 3-1. I'm going to go 3-1 to Tottenham. I think you will score just because I think they've got so many defensive issues right now. I think Pape Sarr's suspended as well for that game, and I think you can't understate how important he's been for them. Basuma's out again because of red cards and whatever else is happening to him. They've obviously got no Son. Romero injured. There's loads of stuff that,
And you still think they're going to beat us 3-1. So Pape Sarr, Basuma at AFCON, right? I think that's where they are.
They're also suspended, but yeah.
Son's at Asia Cup.
Oh, so
they've lost 3 big players. I think the only kicker is if they can get Maddison or Van der Ven back, then I think you've got potential for your score to come true. Without those players, I think it's going to be really hard for them to do that. I mean, they might have Timo Werner, who's going to be signed by then. But, yeah, I can't see us losing that game. I could see us drawing it or, making it a really tight contest. But with the
I
players they have
think you
missing
are.
and the style, then I think it's
Yeah,
going to
but
be
I think
hard.
you underestimate. I think one of the strongest things about Ange is that he doesn't give a crap if all of his best players are out. He somehow still gets the crap players in his team to play well, right? Like you've seen it
Yeah.
happen a couple of times already this season, and you know he's constantly. Tottenham fans, I'm sure, will probably love me for this comment, but he has had a lot of injuries to deal with and a lot of key injuries to his team. So for him to deal with, Papi Sarr being out and Basuma being out, I don't know. He'll get Oliver Skip to come in and play like bloody Zidane, and he'll get Kulusevski to turn into prime bloody Hazard or something. So I think you can't overlook that. And I think what you've got to do is just look at how bad United can be on any given day, right? Like as much as Tottenham are losing players, if you guys turn up and you don't feel like playing, you're going to lose to anyone, right? You could stick anyone in front of you, bloody Eastleigh or Newport County, I'm sure, and you'll lose. And I don't
You
mean
go
that as a
too
slight to
far.
you. Like what I
Well, how
mean
can
by
you
that,
not mean that as
no,
a slight?
but
You
what I mean to
bastard.
that is that you're not just going to get outplayed by a team that's better than you. You're just going to let people beat you, and that's the most frustrating thing about Man United is you've got good players, you've got a good team. If you turn up and want to win, you will probably win. The issue is you just so rarely do that, and when you come up against a team that can't finish a dinner like Arsenal or whatever else, then yeah, maybe you'll get away with it. But Tottenham finished their dinner, man. As much as I hate that team, Ange gets the best out of them, and
Nah, I'm not.
I
I'm
think
not seeing it,
I'm
man.
going 3-1, mate. I'm going 3-1. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah,
I don't see you winning that.
I won't. I won't keep going back and forth with you. But if you watch their FA Cup game, they were missing Son, they were missing Basuma, they were missing Sarr, and it literally took Pedro Porro to slap one in like a screamer in the last 5-10 minutes of that game.
And they
So
still won.
yeah, but Burnley, come on, even you
Yeah,
guys
but
can
you
beat
just beat
Burnley.
Wigan, mate.
So
So you've been
yeah,
losing
but
to everybody for the
we
last
beat
5
Villa, we beat
games.
Villa as well,
Yeah,
and
you
Villa
beat
played
Villa. That was
similar
the
style.
first decent performance of the season, mate. So I think
Beating
right
Chelsea
now
as
you're
well.
at a 95-5 ratio of good performances to bad ones, right? Or bad performances to good ones. So for you to flip the
Oh.
coin and think that you're gonna
Nah, we're
turn up and actually
50-50.
want to play,
We're
you're
50-50.
not.
That's part of, no, that's part of our problem. We either lose for the exact reasons that you've said. I don't disagree with that. Or we win without necessarily playing exactly probably for the same reasons you said. Like styles help us win a game, not us playing amazingly. And then us playing absolutely or not giving enough effort or not tactically maybe being adept, we can lose a game that we should have no place to
I
lose.
can see what you're doing now. You're just looking at the Villa game, thinking, "Oh, they play a high line. He plays a high line. We won
No, it's
3-2.
not simply
They're going to
that.
win."
It's also Chelsea.
I know what you're doing
teams
here.
teams that play and are not necessarily looking to have like a bit more of a rigid play style or something like that. When they come to Old Trafford, especially if it's a bigger team, right? I know Tottenham are not the biggest team in the world, but they're one of the big six. They're going to go for it, and because they're going to go for it, we're going to get chances. It's inevitable. It's just whether or not we can take those chances, and I think that's the big thing. We could lose the game if that happens. If we're extremely wasteful, and then we present Tottenham with goals, which you're not wrong. We have done to Bournemouth. We have done to
They
a
beat
bunch
you
of
earlier in the
teams.
season, didn't they? They beat you
Yeah, they
in
did.
August.
They did beat us earlier in the season, but they beat us with Madison, with Son, with a lot of their players. And I think the circumstances more than anything will help us over the line, even if we don't play to our maximum capability. But either way, I've gone with a 3-2 win. You've gone with a 3-1 loss at home. Let's see where the cookie crumbles. I'm sure it will end up being a bloody draw, but let's see how it goes. But anyway, let's move on to the special segment then. No surprises. The viewers, the listeners won't be shocked to hear what our special segment is because pretty much every content creator is doing it at the moment. But we're going to wrap up the podcast with a special Premier League midway team of the season. So both of us, Johns and myself, have gone with a 4-4-3. We're going to go for a goalie, a right back, two centre backs, one left back,
A
two centre.
4-3-3, you mean, right?
4-3-3. Yeah, sorry,
We're going to do
4-4-3, mate.
4-4-3. I'm all right with that. Yeah, give me 4-4-3, mate. Arsenal need a bloody 4-4-3 right now.
Turned into Todd Bowley. Sorry, guys. We need to play 4-4-3. But no, yeah, we're playing 4-3-3. So a goalie, right back, two centre backs, a left back, two centre midfielders, an attacking midfielder, a right winger, left winger, and a centre forward. So, Johns, you can kick off. Who's your goalkeeper? Let me know.
All right, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm choosing the best players in the league. I'm not choosing it based off of height. I'm not choosing it based off of, who I think is improved their crappy team who are currently 7th in the league, right? I'm going for the people that I'm I want gunmen. I want straight gunmen. This is Gunmen FC, all right? So I'm not choosing Vicario as much as he's great with his little fade and that. No, we're going Alisson. Big Alisson Becker. Come on down. You're my goalkeeper, mate.
Yeah, I hear you. This is going to be fun then, because we've taken a different approach to this. Everything you've just cursed and called out, I've pretty much done. So I hear you though. Alisson is the best goalie in the league. I think that's undeniable. I also think he's been very good this season. So even if you go on form, I think he's been in the top 3 goalies in the league. So I don't think that's a disgraceful shout. I have gone for Vicario with his lovely fade. And the reason why is I don't think you can judge his quality yet because he hasn't been in the league long enough. But I think you can judge his form. And when you look at the stats, I know we've talked about this previously, goalkeeping stats can be very misleading. But if you look at him with the eye test as well, he's definitely been one of the top 3 goalies in the league this season. I think Alisson is in there, he's in there, and probably Emi Martinez are the 3 probably standout goalies so far in the league. But I think just for unexpected factor as well as just the eye test and the stats, I think you have to give it to Vicario. I think it's undeniable Alisson's the best goalie though. But I think Vicario, for what he's done, he's really helped because that playing style, that high line for line, mate, I think it really leaves your goalie exposed. And you've seen it in previous seasons with Liverpool because they also generally play a really high line. And when they've been a bit more controlling and a little bit less kind of counter gegenpressing style, when they move to more of the controlled attacking possession style, where Van Dijk and Konate or Matip were on the edge of the halfway line, that's when you saw Alisson really need to kind of pull off the big saves, and he was one of their best players. But I think Vicario's had a similar season when it comes to that. So I'm going to go Vicario. Right back, John, who are you going for?
So it's a tricky one with right back because obviously you've got kind of the 3 big English lot, right? That are usually the ones that are in contention for it. It's usually Trent, Trippier, and Walker. But I think obviously with Man City's kind of dip in form, and with Kyle Walker being the leader of that team, I feel like it's hard to give it to him. I think Trippier's had a serious kind of drop off in form recently over the last few games. He has been kind of the rock for that team. He's also the captain of that team, and he's made some shocking errors as a friend of mine likes to say to me all the time. A big Liverpool fan. He loves to say, if that were Trent, he'd be getting battered in the media. So I've gone for Trent. I think he's a very average defender, but from the attacking side, from the creative side, from the passing perspective, they're top of the league, and he's one of their best players, right? And he's been form-wise probably their best player this season so far. So I don't think we can really argue too much. I think we've got to go Trent right back.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. I've gone Trent. I kind of played around with the idea of Pedro Porro because I think he's been really good as well this season. But I think you have to give it to Trent. And I will say, I've been very harsh on Trent in previous years about his defensive abilities. I think he's been actually a liability a lot of the time for Liverpool when it goes to defensively. But this season, he's actually also been slightly improved as well. I think he's like top 3 in ball recoveries, which is a good sign of a defensive right back. So he's up there with Walker. He's up there with Trippier as well, who's obviously tailed off recently, but had been playing quite well before that.
His
but
big issue is he just gets dribbled past quite a lot. I think he's in the lowest percentile for getting dribbled past as a defender, and that's the issue that he really. You saw it against Martinelli, right? Martinelli's probably in the stinkiest part of his season form-wise, and he was knocking the ball past him, megging him, doing all kinds, right? So if Trent can figure out how to defend a one-on-one, if he can get with Bissaka, on a weekend one day and just be like, hey, Wan-Bissaka, how do you stop people going past you? Then he could be a significantly better defender, I think. But
I agree with you. Right, he's got a lot of those like post-up moments where he gets nuts or someone does him and it makes him look a bit silly. He has a lot of those moments. But I think like the other defensive actions, he's definitely made improvements. So big up Trent for that. And, it hurts me to say that because I hate you and you're a dirty scouser, but big him up. He's done really well this season, both offensively and defensively. So big shout out to Trent. So who are you going to go with your centre-backs? Let's do them as a pair. Who are going to be your 2 centre-backs?
Can we go for left-back first? Because I want to get the stinky fullbacks out of the way before we get onto the spicy centre-backs, mate.
let's do the fullbacks then. Who's your left-back?
So I'm gonna do this one quickly. There is almost no one to choose apart from a doggy. So Zinchenko ain't anywhere near that. Like Rico Lewis is decent, but Man City again have been not so great this season. I'm gonna have to go for a doggy because he's not new in terms of the fact that he wasn't bought in the summer, but it is kind of I do feel like this is his rookie season in a way, and he's
It
been
is though.
class,
It
man.
is.
He's been
He's
class.
even though he was bought, I think the January or the season before, he was on loan, so he's never actually played in the Prem. So it is
Exactly.
his rookie season. He is basically a brand new signing, and he's been
Yeah.
really good, man. Like I heard good things about him. For all intensive purposes, to clear this up, I've picked a doggy at left back as well, so that's another unanimous one. I agree with you. There's no one else. Like
No.
there's been no one else that stands out. Um, Zinchenko hasn't been great. Robertson obviously been injured. Liverpool kind of been playing
Maybe like
makeshift left
Luca
backs.
Dina. Luca
Luka
Dina's been
Dini's a
all
good
right
shout.
at left back, but he's not
He's
really
done well.
he's not supposed to be. Even though I don't think he's supposed to be their starting left back. I feel like they
No,
want to play
no, no.
someone else, and he's
Alex,
kind of just been a really good backup, right?
yeah, Alex Moreno, I think is Unai's
Yeah,
normally his starting left back. So I think he's done really well. I think he's a good shout. I agree with you. I think he's done. He's an honourable mention, but I think Udogie's been really
especially with
bright and really good.
Estupinian as well being kind of like out for
Yeah,
the beginning part of the season because he played in the FA Cup recently and he looked good again. So
yeah,
I
he
think
looks good.
if Estupinian comes back and plays well, then he's going to be in for a shout for that at the end of the season. But yeah, Doggy has to be for what we've seen so far.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Let's pick up the pace then. Centre backs, who are your pair? I think this should be unanimous, but let's
It's
see.
pretty simple. Van Dijk and Saliba. I think the weird thing about it is that I don't know if I would like to see them together because they're very similar in style. But I think Van Dijk and Saliba, based off of performances so far and how critical they are to their team, I think they have to be.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's an easy choice. I think there are a couple of honourable mentions. I think Gabriel has been really good as
Yeah,
well. I think your
yeah,
pair has been very good in general. I think without injuries, Mickey van der Ven
yeah.
has been really, really good as well. I'm not sure on the Romero shouts. I know
No
he's been
chance.
I think he's been
No
a
chance.
bit more controlled than he has normally, but he's still had bare suspension. So I think Tottenham fans are just doing a bit of an emotional one picking him. But I think it's clear it's Van Dijk and Saliba. I think they've been the best centre backs by quite a distance. All right, let's go to centre mid.
Also, shout out to Pinnock and to Konsa because they've both
Yeah.
been balling as well. Yeah.
Pinnock started really well, but I think Brentford as a
I
team
think
have been
Brentford,
really
they're just
struggling. So
having a
it's
bit of a
been
stinker, but he's
yeah,
definitely the star of that defense.
yeah, no, for sure. Konza as well, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
big shout. Although I think he's kind of been used a bit at right back recently, and I think
yeah,
Diego Carlos has come in, so it's hard to say. I think Van Dijk and Saliba are mainstays of their team, so I think it
100%.
makes sense. Let's
Yeah.
go to centre midfield then. Who are your two?
So I want to be very clear here. I'm playing a 6 and an 8, so I'm not going to play two sixes next to each other. So someone's going to have to miss out, unfortunately. And I think for that sixth position, you've got Rice, you've got Rodri, you've got Polinia, you've got a couple of other players, but you've got Alvarez at West Ham. You've got a few different choices, but I think Rice has made the biggest difference to his team so far, and he's obviously had a number of kind of highlight moments uh, since coming to Arsenal, and obviously with his price tag and all that goes with it. I think a lot of people were expecting him not to be quite as good, but I think I've got to take Rice over Rodri because also another thing about that is that Rodri has been injured for significant portions of the of the season so far. He's been out for this, out for that. I know it's made a big difference to Man City, but I don't think you can give it to him if he hasn't played because he has played, but obviously he hasn't played every game. Whereas Rice, what do you want from a six? You want them to be there every single game, giving you 7s and 8s out of 10, and I think Rice has done that for the most part. So I'm going Rice at my 6. Do you want me to go through my 8 as well now?
Yeah, go on. Give me your 8 as well.
All right, I've gone for. I'll be honest with you, I've gone for Douglas Luiz. I think he's not getting enough of a shout, and I think based off of the form that Aston Villa have shown so far, they're second in the league, man. Like, there's got to be more Aston Villa players in this team, and I think him and Watkins are in with the best shout of getting into this team. So I've gone for Douglas Luiz alongside of my Rice. I think he'd play well kind of next to Rice. I think he's obviously scored quite a lot of goals. A lot of them are penalties, but I think he would be a really good combination. How about you?
Yep, I've gone with the same. So far we're pretty almost identical, apart from the goalie. I've gone Rice and Douglas Luiz, exact same reasons as you. I think Douglas Luiz has been really good for pretty much all of 2023. I think even back
True.
end of last season he was really good too.
Since Unai came in, right?
Yeah, and I think Rice has been just been a revelation. I know the last couple of weeks he's had a couple of rough games, but he's been 7, 8 out of 10 every week, come up with big goals, and so much so that people are not moaning about the fee. And some ridiculous Arsenal fans have been saying we should give West Ham more money, but let's just say 105 million.
Doing it.
Yeah, it's a lot, but we haven't talked about it too much. So I think that's the biggest compliment you can give him. All right, let's go to attacking midfielder then. John, who have you got?
I would have gone for Maddison if he didn't get injured. As a result, I'm going to have to go for Foden. I think people are still overdoing it a bit, and I might be now kind of playing into that, but he has been good for them. And I think, he's been one of the main creative outlets with De Bruyne not there. I think when De Bruyne comes back, it's going to be a different story. He's going to have to fit in where he can, but I think I've got to go for Foden. How about you?
All right, that's a good one. I feel like, I didn't buy into the Foden hype. I know he's had some really good weeks recently, but he's a bit of a streaky player. So I think he goes kind of under the radar. Some people, he's either underrated or overrated. I don't think people actually have found his real level. I've gone for the cold Palmer.
I knew it was
I'm shivering. I'm shivering. I'm wearing a shirt. And it's been a bit of a cold snap here in London, and it's affected my mind. I've gone for. I think he's from Wythenshawe. I think in Manny. He's a United fan. But that hasn't influenced me.
Course.
He's just been
the real reasons come out. Yeah.
No, it's just objective. I mean, that goal he scored at Luton, where he bloody dropped the goalie, did a little rollover, and then waited for the defender to catch up to him, and then tucked it in. Disgusting. Yeah. So big him up. He's a very strange, racially ambiguous Don, and he looks like he's just like a really weird guy. But love him. Big up to Cole Palmer. He's done really good for Chelsea. He's basically been their only good player this season. So I felt like his stats are really good as well. So it's not only the performances, his stats. He's got loads of goals and assists for them. There's been a few pens here and there, but I think he's done really well. Let's go to the wingers then.
Let me just ask you one question though. Would you have gone Maddison if he didn't get injured?
If Maddison was still playing and kept up the form, or even had a slight dip, I think it would be a no-brainer. I think Maddison would get in probably both of our teams. But because he didn't play, he hasn't played for almost 50% of the season so far. I don't think you can put him in there. It would be going off vibes to put him in there. Let's go off the wing. Let's do both of our wingers then, right and left wing. Who are you going for, Johns?
Right wing, I think it's a foregone conclusion. As much as I love Saka, there's no chance he's getting into this team. It's Salah at the right wing. They're going to miss him, I think, dearly during AFCON. So I think you're going to see even more why he's so important to that team. I kind of said it yesterday and jinxed myself, and and they ended up beating us anyway. On Sunday, sorry. But Salah on the right wing, and I'm going to go. I know this one's a hard one for the left wing because he doesn't really always play there, and I think he's played well at centre forward as well, but I'm going to go with Son. I think, again, I'm choosing class, man. And if I had to build a team for the rest of the season, not including the Asia Cup and all that, I'd have Son at my left wing if I could. I think he's on class. He's going to be the best left winger we've probably got in the league.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I've gone for the same. Salah's been really good this season, not only with goals. I think his creative spark has come out of nowhere almost. He's doing bloody Travellas and he's doing all kinds of stuff to set people up, and I think it's gone under the radar how well he's done from a playmaking perspective. I think at least from non-Liverpool fans. So I think you've got to give him a bunch of credit for that. He's still not my favourite player on the eye, but I think that's just a technical thing, preference. It's undeniable his quality and what he's done. I think he's a Premier League great at this point. So 100%. Big up Salah. He's at right wing. Son, you know what? Asian bias. I'm putting him up there for a similar level. Like, I know his performance last season wasn't fantastic. He's still got, I think, 10 or 11 goals. So I think you can't argue with his output. But he wasn't quite himself. I think he was injured. But this season, he's been back to that cold, clinical Son that we've known from his previous 4 or 5 seasons at Spurs. I think by the time he ends his career, because I do believe he'll probably end his career at Spurs, I think he's going to get up there in terms of the Premier League goals. And you never know, with Big Angie at the wheel, maybe they can pick up some sort of trophies as well to at least give him something to look back on his career and say that he's had a good time at Spurs. I think you're right, though. Left wing is a bit hard because there's no one really who stands out. Maybe Doku, but he's kind of been dropped in the last couple of weeks, so he
Yeah.
hasn't kind of had the same output. But I think Son is the logical left winger, because even in the last few weeks when he's played left wing, he's been good. He twisted
Yeah.
Trippier up like a pretzel. He's done some effective things from that position and scored some goals. So I think Son is the logical left winger. Let's wrap it up then. Centre forward, who have you got?
So again, I was so leaning towards Watkins because I think he's a great player, and I think he offers so much more than just scoring. Like, I think he's second highest for assists this season, and I think just generally speaking, he's got the right temperament. I love everything about him, and if I could have him at Arsenal, I'd take him every day of the week. But again, I've got to stick to my guns here, and I've got to say who is the gunman of the league. Who would I take for the rest of the season and for the next 5 years after that? And I'm gonna have to go with Ireland. As much as he's been injured for the last couple of games, he's still the top scorer. And that just says everything to you, right? It doesn't matter if he's injured for 3, 4, 5 games, he's still going to be the top scorer in your league. And I think he's missed quite a lot of big chances this season. I think he's got like 17 big chances missed, which is only rivaled by Darwin or Darluz Nunes, as I call him. But I think you still can't understate the effect that he has on not just your own team, but on the opposition. Because oh mate, if you're a centre back coming up against a Haaland, it's a long day. It's a long, long day. So I'm going with Haaland, but a big honourable mention to Watkins.
Fair enough. I'm glad you got him in there, because I've seen a lot of these midway team of the seasons and people haven't even mentioned Haaland, or they've kind of mentioned him in passing. So I'm glad you got him in there. I haven't gone for Haaland or Watkins, but I think they're both.
You've gone for.
I've gone from Big Dom Golanki, my anime brother, anime celebration king for Bournemouth. Basically because of the stuff that you were making fun of earlier when you were saying taking your crappy 7th place team up to whatever. Because without his goals, I know Bournemouth have generally looked pretty good under Iriola in the last 2-3 months, but without his goals, Bournemouth would be struggling. I don't know if they would be in and around the Lutons and the other crap teams at the bottom of the league, but they would be a hell of a lot worse off than they currently are. He scored big goals as well at big grounds, winning goals, decisive goals, and I just think if you wanted I think if you say Haaland is obviously the real gunman of the league, but who's kind of been the second gunman of the league in that centre forward position, I think he's more clinical than Watkins. I agree with you. Watkins gives you more overall. He does the running of the channels. He comes up with really nice assists. But I think if you wanted just like a clinical striker with Ivan Toney out, I think Solanke's has proven this season so far that he is that next person in line. I think it's going to be really interesting to see who Gareth Southgate picks for the Euros, because I think after Harry Kane, he's got Solanke, Watkins, and if Toney gets back in form, he's got Ivan Toney as well to pick from. Nketiah has been in the last squads as well, so you've got all of these guys. Let's see who he picks. But I've gone for Dom Golanki.
Yeah, no, I mean, just bringing up Southgate, he'll probably get bloody Jamie Vardy out of the Championship and say, yeah, you know what, we'll give you a run at it, given based off of his history of who he chooses. But I can see it. I think Solanke is in the mold of Haaland. Like he's doesn't need to offer very much more than just I'm going to stand there and you're going to pass me the ball and I'm going to shoot over and over again until I score. And I think if you don't have Haaland in your team, but you still want to play that same way, I think Solanke is probably the right move to go for. I just do think at this point in time, if you wanted a complete striker, you'd have to go Watkins. But I completely understand why you'd go for Solanke. And it's good to big up players like that as well, because I mean Solanke's one of those players that there was loads of pressure put on him, like from Chelsea and all of that stuff. There was a lot of pressure put on him to be really good, and he hasn't really done it. He's always we've kind of looked at him and thought, oh, maybe you're going to be kind of like a Patrick Bamfordish kind of player where you're just really good in the Championship and you can never really make it in the Premier League. So I'm happy to see him kind of fulfill that potential a bit more. And he's only 26, I think, so he's still got a good few years of banging in goals. So I'm happy for him as well.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you. There's so many. We've talked about, I think privately, maybe on some previous pods, about how it's really hard to be a young striker in the game of football, because everyone kind of marks you as the next big wonder kid. I think it's the easiest position to mark someone as a wonder kid, because you just score goals, and then people kind of consider you the certainty to be a gunman when you grow up. And you're seeing more and more these young strikers struggle at the beginning, 3 or 4 seasons of their career, and it takes 5, 6, 7 years for them to actually start to flourish. You see it with Tony. You've now seen it with Solanke. You've seen it with, I think, Joshua Zirkzee up in Serie A as well, who was kind of marked as a wonder kid when in FM in years gone by. And they're only starting to, kind of flourish now. So big up Solanke, man. Hope he finishes the season well. Just don't score against United and we're all good, mate.
Or Arsenal, for that matter.
Yeah, I don't mind. Score against Arsenal. It's all good. But yeah, that's our teams then. I'm sure Johnson will get a graphic up on the screen. We've both gone for fairly similar teams, only I think different in goal, different AMs, and then different strikers. So, that shows we kind of have the same ball knowledge when it comes to, or similar ball knowledge when it comes to looking at the teams of the season so far. But yeah, Johns, thanks for joining. Obviously, you always join, so it's our pod. But yeah, thanks for chatting this week. I think we'll wrap up the pod here. Thanks for joining, man. Hopefully, Arsenal, are better off in a couple of weeks' time when you play Crystal Palace.
We'll see.
And let's see. Maybe you have some transfers over the line as well. But,
maybe.
You never know. Ivan Toney, 100 million incoming.
Oh, God.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in to this week's podcast, everyone. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, Ant.